Hello, everyone. Welcome to another IMG Initiator session that today we have the pleasure to receive Dr. Angel Gomez-Cintron. He's a radiologist and an educator on U2 Health in San Antonio and Texas. And he's passionate about image guide for musculoskeletal procedures, education, inclusion, and fitness. And do you want to say hello and tell us what you like to do outside of medicine?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me here. I haven't done one of these things in a little while. I guess I took a little time off from education and mentoring, but I'm back. So, yeah, I'm originally from Puerto Rico, and yep, I train in Puerto Rico and also at Texas, and then after that, I've dedicated my professional life to education. So, I've been a residency program director for 13 years. Some of it in the University of Puerto Rico, then at the University of Alabama in Birmingham, and then I'll be at the University of Texas San Antonio, where I am right now. So I pretty much love to teach, and in academics, you can kind of dedicate yourself to obviously clinical work, administration, education, or research, and I gravitated more to clinical work, education, and administration, as program directorship is most an administrative position more than an educational one. So I'm an MSK, musculoskeletal radiologist. So that's what I do. I specialize in image-guided procedures of the bone, pain management, sports medicine procedures, as well as cancer treatments with radiofrequency ablation and cryoablation. I have 2 kids, so I'm a proud father of 2 amazing kids, and I love outside of work, I love to exercise. Don't know why, but I love fitness. Kind of, it's my mindfulness. Seems like it's my way to kind of disconnect for a little bit. But at my age, people are like, "You're crazy," because I work out really early in the morning, so people still can call me crazy. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. By the way, Deborah is also like one of our powerhouse here in Citrus Solver. She loves exercising.
Come to San Antonio.
So today we have some questions prepared, but also we invite everyone to start. If you have any question about radiology, about application, you're very welcome to write them on the chat. Okay, so Deb, you can start with any of. First of all, we want to know, as IMGs applying to radiology, and after your experience as PD, what can an applicant do to be more to fit better into the specialty?
Yeah, obviously, the decision of choosing your specialty is, I consider that a little bit before I get into the picture of mentoring. And for an IMG is kind of an important decision. Obviously, we all want to do what we kind of think we like. But there's some realities for everybody that, there's some specialties that we know are more competitive than others, and that's something that you can control. And as you guys know, you try to control the things that you can, and the ones that you can't control, you just can't. I mean, there are ways to change things, but when you're an applicant, that is not the time. Like, I mentor sometimes students, and they're like, well, it's unfair that there's more, opportunity for this type of people than the other. And it's true. And there are some ways that you can contribute and advocate for that. But when you're an applicant, that's just, those things are kind of out of your hand, and you just kind of want to concentrate on things that you can control, obviously, and the ones that you cannot control, just try to understand them and work with it. For example, one of those things is that some residencies are more competitive than other. Let's say, dermatology in the United States is very competitive as compared to, I don't know, other specialties. A lot of it is because they're popular. Some of it is because they have very few spots. Like, for example, ENT has very, very few spots. So it's hard to get in just because there's just not enough spots out there. So those things you can control. I think in kind of deciding what you want to do, it's important to keep that in mind, you as an applicant. I mean, nothing is impossible. And I think if you really love something, you should try it. My rule of thumb is like you try really hard, and if you get a mentor and a sponsor, you do the right things, and you don't match for 2 years, maybe it's time to regroup and maybe think about something else. Nothing wrong with it. I am a radiologist, but I could have been a surgeon. I mean, I've done this for 20 years, and we get in this, we human beings, especially medical students, we're type A personalities, we're overachievers, we want to achieve something. It's hard for us to even consider somebody telling us that we can really achieve something. But again, it all comes down to sometimes there's some things that you can't control, and you just have to keep that in mind. And in terms of the application process, it's divided in two. It's just the application process is a two-step process. And the first step is in general terms, and trying to simplify it as much as I can, is trying to get an interview. And then the second part of the process is going through the interview and trying to do a good job so people rank you. And in quite honesty, they're kind of independent from each other. You can get an interview and people think that, oh my God, this person, according to the ERAS application, is really good, or it's it's a good fit, or thinks it's a good fit with our program, but then in the interview process, they do so bad that they may not be even ranked. So, I mean, they're kind of independent of each other. And I think the IMGs historically have a problem with the first step, not the second step. It's just the first step, right? Because I'm giving you an example in radiology, in big programs like UAB at the University of Texas here, Health in San Antonio, we receive approximately 1,200 applications for approximately 10 to 13 spots. And it is virtually impossible for any program director, even if you divide it between the team, because I think how this works is that there is an admission committee, and this committee, usually you get divided. We decide what are, everybody does the same, what are the things that are important to us, and we divide kind of the applications, and then we kind of see which one we're going to interview. And in general terms, and this goes around for every specialty, for every 10 spots you interview, for one spot, you interview 10 people. So if you have 10 spots, you're usually going to interview around 100. So for example, at the University of Texas, we have 13 positions and we interview 130 people, but 1,000 people apply. So the point is that you have to find a way to somebody to click your application, right? Because in all honesty, we don't click all the applications just because we can. And there are some things you can't control. For example, in Texas, we're going to click on people who went to medical school in Texas because we assume geographically that they would like to stay in Texas. And that is not something that IMG people it will have to your advantage, right? Because you're from another country, and it's hard for us to know where really you want to be. And when I work with IMGs through the years, I realized that most IMGs will go anywhere. I just want to get the opportunity to do it. Obviously, you have preferences. But if people ask you, because for you guys, it's always difficult when why do you want to come to Texas? And you're like, well, I want to go to Texas. I want to do a residency. What other excuse you want me to say? But you have to come up with answers. So increasing your visibility is important, and now it's very difficult because in the past we used to put these filters about the USMLE step 1 and step 2 geography. You can put a lot of filters. But now as they're forcing every program to be more holistic, which may be good, may be bad, depends on where you stand. There are other things that you need to do to stand out, and increasing your visibility is definitely going to have you trying to show yourself out there. And there's several ways to do it: through social media, getting involved in society, in committees of your societies. In radiology, for example, our biggest society, the RSNA, the ACR, the Renyan Ray Society, and even the societies of every state have a medical student section that you have to get the information and get involved. These people really want to be more diverse and include people from everywhere, but you have to do the effort and try to get there. And when I was a program, and I'm still, this year, I'm in charge of the admission committee because I'm back at UT. And when I read the applications, if I see a name that I've seen before, I click on it. And I tell residents, this is the game of the click. I mean, if I click on your name, I may not give you an interview, but you're winning, right? I mean, so sometimes I recognize a name that I've seen on social media, or I've seen that, worked on a project with a society, or rotated through our hospital, or we did a virtual meeting and I recognized their name, and I click on that application, and you're winning. Because remember, the majority or half of the applications remain unclicked. And there's something that you can't control. Obviously, now with signaling and all these things are getting a little bit more, specific about who wants to, do residency with you. But that's the most important thing for IMGs, and it's a pain, especially for introverts, because I mean, getting out there and putting your name out there and be visible and participating in committees is really hard for introverts. It's just, for extroverts a little bit easier because they're social butterflies. They go to a society meeting and they talk to people. But introverts a little bit hard. But I mean, you have to do it. You have to try to do that. I mean, those are kind of the simple ways. Obviously, you can increase your visibility if you have like a major publication that gets shared everywhere and people read it. But those things are not as easy for everybody, because you really have to have a lot of resources and be in a place that has a lot of resources for you to be publishing something that is transcendental, right? That really puts you out there. Oh, this research is like, they came up with this new classification for something. But in my experience, that's not easy. Same as people like, well, you are an Olympic athlete and you went to the Olympics or some, obviously you have a lot of visibility, but it's not everybody. That's just what I'm trying to say. So you're just trying to use the things that are more mundane and more common. And that's, of course, once you get an interview, I think IMGs do as well as American graduates, or better, because usually they prepare better, in my experience.
Thank you,
Anyway.
thank you for your answer. We got a few questions in the chat, but I think we can. I was gonna ask about the ERAS CV. If you post like some tips on Twitter, and then I saw one this week that you said like that we don't have to try to be a unicorn. And my question is like, have you ever encouraged an applicant who tried to stand out but didn't achieve the expected result, like that don't go so well?
I mean, I would like to say no, but I mean, I mentor many people, IMGs from everywhere in the world. And yeah, I hate the match day, or I used to hate it in the past, because you always get mentees that don't match. And kind of, unfortunately, it's a reality. And sometimes they do most of the things that are right. But yeah, it's not independent on the specialty you're applying again. It's how difficult it's going to be. But yeah, I mean, it happens sometimes, but again, you're just trying to play the game to leverage the game. This is a game. Just think about it as a game. It's just a game. And there's a lot of people playing the game, and there's limited spaces, and you're trying to play the game the best you can, so you can win. And I just don't feel like don't feel shame about it. Don't feel like you're trying to be better than anybody. You're not. I mean, you're just trying to bring what makes you unique in the things that you do good with your experiences in the past that makes you somebody that can fit your culture, which is almost about the same everywhere. People who are resilient, who don't complain, work hard. And you're trying to get that point across. Somebody who is willing to be a team player. I mean, this doesn't really vary through specialties. It's about the same for everybody. And you're trying to portray that in the things that you have done. It doesn't, what I'm trying to say is that you don't need to be like, be a research assistant in Harvard, with this famous person for it to count. If I was in a meeting 2 weeks ago, and we're talking to some other people who do this, work in admission committees, and when I read this, I'm looking for things that kind of make you stand out. I mean, like I said in the video, but I mean, being a waitress in a busy restaurant is something that I'm like, wow, this person went to medical school and still was a waitress and took some time to do it. And just reflects on the things that you are as a person, and, how do you manage your time, how you can multitask different things while you're in residency, and kind of make you kind of a more complete person. So that's what I'm trying to say, that don't leave stuff out in the application that you think is mundane because maybe it's not related to medicine, just because you're trying to look for this amazing thing that it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's just what you do exactly or who you do it with. It's just not really that important, but how you did it, why you did it, and what did you get out of it. So so that's the point I'm trying to make.
Wow.
I mean, it's just, as I'm telling you, I look at those Dean's letter, and for 90% of Dean's letter is trash. With all the priorities, we're looking for stuff that, those noteworthy characteristics that all the MPSC letters have. It's just like, sometimes like, well, this person, grew up here or whatever, something special about them. And, sometimes you find these things in the Dean's letter and kind of hitting is super important. And then you don't see anywhere else in the application. And you're like, with the years, I realized that students just think that if you're not doing something super high end and all this, it's just not important, but it's just not the truth. We're just looking, I mean, this is medicine. You're not auditioning for a role in the latest movie in Hollywood. I mean, we're just physicians. We're just human beings, and we're looking for normal stuff. I'm a normal person. Why would I be looking for somebody that, I work in an academic hospital, and big time NIH funded research people in my department, maybe one or two. So why would I expect that from a student? I mean, it's just for me, every year I have to, I tell the, you don't really have to be this super special, whatever, to be able to be good and portray to sound confident and portray a picture of yourself as somebody who's going to work hard, be a team player, be resilient, have high social intelligence. I think if you want to portray something more important than anything, is social intelligence, more than anything.
Yeah, that personally, after listening to that, feels so reassuring, because most of us IMGs think that we have to basically find a cure of cancer to be able, or to be to deserve a place here. But now, thank you for all these insights. Since we are around this topic, we have this question in the chat. In your recruitment experiences in academic medicine, what are the core values that you will look up in an applicant? How can different experience showcase them, as in research, leadership, regarding describing experiences in the best way you can increase your chances of an IB? Although I think you already answered this question in some ways, I think that to best tackle this question will be like, how an applicant can showcase that on the personal statement, or.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of way to do it. I mean, everything has its personal statement has its science, and the application has its science. Now every year, past few years, they came up with the signaling. Now they're coming with the experience section. And the reason ERAS is doing this because there's more and more push for the application to be holistic, and the reality is that they have realized that as you take numbers out, it becomes actually more unfair, because I think ERAS, and I know about this because I've been complaining in all the committees that I want, like the problem is that when people do holistic, people who are on my side, you have to be able to define what is important to you as a program, to be able to be fair to everybody. But you can't, I mean, if you say, I'm going to be holistic, and you start reading applications without a plan of what is important to you, you're going to be very unfair, because it depends on the time of the day that you're reading applications. It depends if you're happy, if you're unhappy. It depends if that day, volunteer experience is important to you. Maybe you woke up the next day and it unconsciously doesn't feel that important. So there has to be a plan. And I think what ERAS is doing, which, because of all these complaints from people like me, there's a lot of them, is that they're trying to make it more formal in the ERAS application, so people can have very consistency between applicants of, what is a volunteer experience, what you get out of experience exactly, how do you answer, how you describe the experience, how did you do it? Did you do it for a year? Did you do it for 2 years? Did you do it once in a lifetime? But I think the most important thing is, what did you do and why it was impactful for you in a short way. You don't have to, write, in fact, writing a lot goes without you. And when I open applications are very long, I just get tired and close them, because I just want to get the most information in the least amount of time. I mean, I have 500 applications to read. I don't have time to spend 3 hours reading an application. So You want to be able to, say a lot with the least amount of words, and just try to portray, just determine your values. This is very important. And I get so surprised every year. Well, I didn't interview this past year, but on the years that I interviewed, that sometimes in the interview, I ask applicants, just talk to me about your values. And people couldn't answer. So how can you submit an application and trying to transform experiences into something or a message that you want to portray to a program director if you don't even know what your values are? Like, you at least have to pick 1 or 2 or 3 values that are important to you, that that in your lifetime and in your lifetime experiences have served you well. You have learned a lot from there and have made you a better human being. And for that reason, it's going to make you a good doctor. Then you should try to portray those experiences on how it helps or augments the values that you have. And I'm not telling you you have to have a specific values, but you can have values. I'm really into diversity, or I'm into health equity, or whatever it is. I'm really into the values that you have. I want to be a kind person. I want to be a person that practices medicine and takes into consideration, the whole patient, their social place in the world and their problems, and try, which, I mean, your values can be, I'm really want to be a researcher, and I want to find the newest cure or whatever, whatever it is. I'm not telling you there's a right set of values that you should follow, but you should try to get 1 or 3 and just try to explain those experiences on how they augment that. So it's organized. So every time you talk about an experience, either a voluntary experience or work experiences, how this shape the values that I have. And I think having that very well defined just gives you sound so much more confident. So anyway, that's the way that I think you should go about it.
I love it. There is another question in the chat. If a resident committee or the PD is interested to know about an applicant, can he or she go through the ERAS and find that person?
I think that I don't know if I understand the question well, but I think that program directors are really hard to reach because a lot of people are trying to reach them. And for example, I got to a point that I don't answer people just because if you answer somebody, it just creates a ball of communication, and I just don't have the time to do that like 100 times a day. But I think the most efficient way to contact a program is just to contact a resident. Usually residents are happy to talk to you and tell you what they think. And in all honesty, you're probably going to get a better idea of what's going on, because if you ask me as program director, I'm going to tell you, well, actually, I'm very honest, because I've learned that I don't want residents that don't want to be with us. I absolutely don't want any resident I don't care who you are. You can be Superman or Supergirl. If you don't really want to train with us, I don't really want you. I mean, it's as simple as that. That's why all this signaling, all this thing is important to program directors. The residents that have given me the most problem in my 13 years were residents that match with us when they didn't want to come and train with us. But even though you tell people don't rank places you don't want to go, they still do, and then they're miserable. And then the first thing that goes wrong is like, I didn't even want to be here in the first place. So for me, knowing that a student wants to train with us, it's really important. But anyways, the point is that I would contact a resident from they're usually, some of them are in social media, or some of them you can get their email. There's obviously 100 ways to try to contact one. And just asking a question. I'm a medical student applying for radiology, and I have this specific questions. Every time you're going to communicate with somebody, just be respectful of their time, and just have a specific question that you want to be answered. Like, they're not going to be able to give you answers like, are they going to accept me? Like, these are my numbers. I'm going to be, they won't be able to answer you that question. So don't ask that. There's not going to be a program out there that is going to be able to answer you that question, because the match is so mysterious and it works in so mysterious ways. And after, you can't really have an idea of what's going on till you interview everybody and just kind of sit down with your admission committee and kind of figure it out. But I mean, if you have a specific question about the program, or if you have interest, when I was program director, many students would contact residents and, hey, I got contact with this person, and they seem very interested, they're whatever, their sister lives in San Antonio and they really want something here. I mean, it's information that gets to me that is important. So, but the program director, some of them will answer you, some won't. Most of them won't, especially as the specialty gets more competitive.
Oh, wow, that's interesting to know, because honestly, sometimes we're like wondering, am I a good fit? But also, you're very right, like you have to know how to ask for things. And talking about that, there is another question in the chat in regards to this topic. It is, should we reach out to program directors beforehand? If so, should we email our CVs or any other document to try to get noticed before the click, like you mentioned, as an alternative to social media?
Absolutely. Look, this is one thing you should not do, is write a generic long email and change and people are very, I cannot tell you how lazy people are, that they create this super long email and they change the name of the place, and even the font is different of the place, or even my name is spelled wrong. But even if you don't do that, I can sense a generic email from a mile away, like an email that you sent to like 100 programs. Just don't do that. In fact, you send me one of the generic emails and you're the first person I'm not going to interview, because it's just a cheap way to do it. I mean, it's like, what, you don't respect my time? You're sending me like a 2-page email that you're sending 100 people and you expect me to give you this special attention? So stay away from that. And let me tell you, I've been part of the ACGME and all this Association of University Radiologists. I've experienced and talked with a lot of program directors, and they feel the same way. Now, if you want to communicate with a program, just write a very short email and be specific with what you want to portray there. Now, I'm very interested in your program means nothing, because everybody writes that, right? Everybody lies, and it's something that you have to get used to it. Everybody lies. Every resident is super interested in your program. And I understand that. What are they going to say? I'm kind of interested with you guys, but I mean, be specific about it, and the short and specific. Dr. Gomez, I've seen you, I saw a conference of you or something, or my sister lives in San Antonio, or I have family in tech, whatever it is, but be specific with what you want to write. And if you don't have anything specific to say about the program or why you like the place, I would just save it and just don't, because you may end up, I don't think it's going to hurt you, but it's not going to help. It's kind of would be a waste of time. But absolutely don't do those generic emails. And if you do, make sure that names are spelled right, and you change the, it's all homogeneous. You can do this. This is simple stuff. But I mean, you would not believe the mistakes people make in writing these generic emails. And every year, even though we program directors say this every year, don't do generic emails, people still do it. But I will advise for you not to do it. I mean, you can do it, but I think it's going to be a big waste of time. Nobody's going to read it and say, oh yeah, wow, look, this person is specifically interested in us, But be specific. I read the emails when they're like 2 or 3 lines. Dr. Gomez, I really, I saw, some people are like, I saw a video of you or whatever, and got my attention, that you really like it. And you don't even have to say anything else. You caught my attention. And when I go to the application, I'm going to click your name. Or even if I don't answer you, or Dr. Gomez, I really been following the Texas residency, because I want to go to San Antonio for this specific reason, or I like the program for this specific reason. And that's what you all want to get the person attention, so they click your name in the application. You don't need people don't need to respond to you. I usually don't respond to people because I don't want to generate this ball of like, and then your generation is like, if I answer you one time and then I don't answer you again, you're ghosting me, because that's kind of the young generation thing. And so I just don't answer. So you can tell I ghosted you but in reality, you can, have a lot of clinical work to do, and all program directors do. And remember, if it was like 1 email a day, you could do that. But sometimes it's in the, when I was a program director during the application season, you could get 40 emails a day. So it becomes almost impossible to answer them. So anyway, those are my recommendations. Write it, be short, be specific. Don't expect a reply. Remember, all you want to do is get the program director attention. And also you can write an associate program director. They're in the admission committee and they have as much power as the program director. Anybody in the admission committee has as much power as the program director in Texas and everywhere in the United States. So if you find out who is in the admission committee, you can write them too. In fact, there's probably a better chance that somebody who's not the program director will read it, because usually most of the messages are directed to the program director. But in the admission committee, everybody has a voice and a vote, and it's all the same everywhere. Everywhere I worked is the same. It doesn't vary from institution to institution.
We have a question about the personal statement. I want to know what make your roll your eye when you see a personal statement and make you like, I don't want to read this, and at instant don't read.
I think the first thing is that you're bragging. That you come across as, and I talked to this a little bit in the last video. I say, you know, like you're all unique. I'm unique in some ways, you too, but that doesn't make you superior. And I feel like if you go into a personal statement trying to brag and comparing yourself to people and what makes you better than others, usually I roll my eyes. I mean, it's just, you know, if you talk about what makes you unique or a good fit to whatever you want to portray, that's fine. But when you start comparing with other people, then it just comes across. So that's the first one that, you know, I will roll my eyes. Second is, if you have a lot of grammatical errors and the syntax is really wrong, and you can tell you put very little effort into this, I think it just says a lot about you. If you didn't even take the time to proofread and try to, you know, make it sound like something that you worked on, and that's and now just try to be kind of especially now with ChatGPT and all the stuff that can write this personal statement for you. Do remember that we can go into ChatGPT as well, and even though every response is the same, they're very similar. Because I mean, I play with this with other people, and we have put, you know, personal statement like 5 people and give different cues, and even though they're different personal statement, at the core they're the same. So just be careful, because we have access to it too. So just, I mean, obviously use it, because I use it ChatGPT to get me, you know, kind of like a backbone idea of what I want to write, but I would have just, whatever it gets, I think people are going to find out. So just try to be original and put your personal touch into it. Because ChatGPT doesn't know anything about you. It knows a lot about the context of what you want to write and other experiences from a lot of people, but it doesn't know anything about you specifically, unless you're a famous artist or something like that. But other than that, you're just not going to know anything about you. So, those are the major things that made me roll my eye. The rest of it is just, people are usually really good in kind of staying within the lines. Obviously, there's some personal statements that are better and catch your attention. Some are very boring. A personal statement is important. It's just, you know, you just have to portray a story, and you have to be a master of storytelling. It's just like reading. If you're just think about yourself reading an article or something, and you know what grab your attention, or just versus reading something that you just want to fall asleep. And you can think about this in a lot of ways. You know, you open a magazine and you start reading an article, and it grabs your attention and just feels that is engaging you, versus sometimes you open an article and it's just like, wow, this is just, when is it going to start? Same with a movie, right? There's some movies who are attention grabbers and some are not. So, you know, I think the best way to describe for me is just try to make a story out of it, so it's engaging and not sound robotic. Like, obviously everybody tells you that in the personal statement you should write, you know, first who you are and how did you get here, and then why did you want to do this specialty in specific, or, you know, the examples of it. And the last one, why you think you're going to be a good fit for the program and for the specialty. And everybody tells you the same. And it's true. This is kind of the basis of the personal statement, who you are, why did I choose the specialty, and why in particular would be a good fit to the specialty and program. But you can say in a way of experiences and a storytelling way that is more engaging. And again, I would try to keep it as short as possible, you know, and very concise, very easy to understand language. This is not a poetry contest. I don't want to be trying to read something that I'm trying to figure out what you're trying to, you know, like, this is not philosophy. I mean, this is just simple language trying to, you know, get your message across in a simple way, in a way that is engaging. So if you're going to ask me a particular word, it will be storytelling.
Thank you so much. Yesterday you have a really good video about to do and don't do on YouTube that I watched yesterday. I will put in the chat so people can watch, because it was really good when I watched it yesterday. Yes, do you wanna make a question?
Of course, following some of the questions in the chat too. For example, what are you looking for in the personal statement? Well, you answer that, or is there any structure that you use to read faster through it?
The personal statement?
Yeah.
Well, I've read some memorable personal statements, and I read some very boring too. I think when people try to portray their experiences, I mean, it's just kind of a generic term of experiences, but things, key situations that have shaped the person's life, and how that influenced the way that they ended up doing medicine and ended up choosing the specialty. I think those are the most engaging. Obviously, every specialty has very generic situations that you keep reading, you know, all the time, you know, like in radiology will be like, well, you know, a story that you see every year, you know, my mom had breast cancer and the radiologist made the difference because it, you know, saw the tumor for the first time. Or I love computers and video games, and radiology is very, you know, so I'm not saying it's not bad, but it's very common and you're not going to stand out. So if you think about your specialty that you want and you think about the most common reasons, probably people, you know, everybody is smart. People kind of think about the same things, and kind of you keep reading that all the time. So, but very engaging. It's like something that happened, experience in your life, doesn't matter what it was, that personal experience to you that kind of help you see that this is kind of what I want to do. And I feel like sometimes if you talk about some hardship that you had in your life and how you overcame it, it's usually a good punch, you know. Obviously, I wouldn't get into like a hardship that is obviously can be seen as a red flag, but you know, something that you didn't, a goal that you didn't get for whatever reason, or a disease that you went through, or you know, like moving from a city because your father had a different job and you had to adapt to a place, and you know, all those type of hardships and how you overcame it, and how those hardships kind of shaped the way that you think about life and medicine. Usually those are usually very attention grabbing. And you know, when I've been in the admission committee discussion, because how this works, that we interview everybody and then we meet together and we discuss every applicant with other people and what was their impression about, you know, their interview and the personal statement. And usually a lot of people talk about that. And also, you remember, you're trying to give some information to the program director and admission committee, so when you interview, they have stuff to talk about. And all these things that are engaging, people love to talk about that. People love to talk about a good feel story, right? How, you know, and I think you should amplify that, and also, you know, positive experiences. You know, like I went through this in my life, and you know, I achieved this goal, and the way I went about it, and the way I felt just reinforced that this is what I want to do, and stuff like that. But just use your experience in your life. Use your life. Use you what you like, and there's no right or wrong. I'm telling you, there's no right or you can, you know, you love music. You can use that venue to try to explain how this shaped you and how do you see the world and how you ended up here. We all have a story, and it's a beautiful story. There's just some people are ashamed of portraying it. But every time I talk to students, when they come and they're residents, we sit down in the reading room, and at this point, I've heard thousands of stories of how people got to where they are, and everybody has a beautiful story, worth telling and worth listening. It's just you just have to be able to put it in words that is engaging and thoughtful and kind of supports the core values that you want to live by.
I love it. We have another question, like, what do you look for when you interview a candidate? Like, I think a lot of times we talk about the background, about the clothes, and I want to know besides that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously the interview process is the other part of the application process, and there's very basic rules of interview, right? Be on time and all that stuff, and yeah, in terms of the background, I don't think that's really that important. I just think that the only thing I'm going to say about this is that you don't want to have a distracting background. That's all it is. You can have something like I have that is just non-distracting, or a plain room in the back like Jasmine has. I mean, it's perfect, but remember, everything you put in the background is game. So if you have a picture of something, they may ask you about it. So everything that the people see is it can be a topic of conversation. If you don't want to talk about something, just don't put it in the background, and then just very obviously minimize distractions. I mean, I've interviewed people that dogs are barking in the background, or a cat gets in the middle of the camera and the guy was trying to get the cat off the camera. It just distracts you from your point. You want people to have the person who's interviewing you want them to have all the attention on you and nothing else, because this is the only time you have for them to concentrate on you and what you've done and what you bring to the program. So just try to minimize distraction. That's all there is. The same with clothing. You don't have to, I mean, just wear normal clothes, and I would wear very unassuming clothes that nobody could be like concentrating on your clothes, like thinking like, why did she wear that shirt, or why did he's wearing that funky tie? Just, if I tell guys, it's just, wear like a black gray suit with kind of a black or non-pattern tie, the boring stuff that none of the attention of anybody goes into any piece of your clothing, because you want people to have the attention on you. So that's all there is to it about that. I mean, so because when people ask, the background is, none of that is important. Just make sure that there are no distractions. If there's some in the background and your clothing, you're doing it on purpose. You're doing it, you want people to concentrate on that, or I had people that that I've interviewed that wear traditional clothes from their culture, and they want to augment and they want to portray that. But you're choosing that. You're choosing to do that. You're choosing to the person who's interviewing you to notice that, because you want to talk about it. It's part of the persona, or part of what you want to say. But other than that, just keep it bland. In the interview, just try to be engaging. We interview a lot of people, and it gets very tiring. It gets tiring for you guys. Can you imagine for us? I don't know if any of you have gone through the interview process, but it's very tiring. So imagine us. We do it every week. We talk to people, and it's really hard when people don't talk. So I think that you should practice to find a few things that you can talk about and sound passionate about, and try to bring stuff out that you like and you're passionate about, because it's just you sound more engaged, right? So try to take the initiative. Like, I love fitness, and I play soccer in college and tennis, and so sometimes I like to talk about it because I'm so passionate about that. I can get you an earful. But while the other person is, their interpretation is like, man, this person is very into it, is very optimistic, is really involved in this situation, versus trying to gravitate to things that we're talking about that you have no interest on it, or that you don't know nothing about. It may come across as you're not interested, and it's just because you're interested in the process. It's just that in that particular topic you don't know much about, and you're not really having any interest about that. That's why the hobby and interest part of the application is important. I tell people it's really important, because we product, like, I ain't going to ask you about hey, how was your translation research on the gene 23X3 on the microscope? What did you see? I mean, like, you'd be like, yeah, well, I saw some bacteria there, and I ran this electrophoresis and stuff like, it just doesn't. Remember, we're trying to have a conversation so I can know you. Like, we're not in the interview, we're not getting into technicalities, and this is not a test of like knowing exactly what so we want to have engaging conversation, and the best way to do it from your part is try to control your conversation the most you can in things that you're passionate, you can talk about, that you sound enthusiastic, because it will help you out, especially when you get tired of talking to people and people ask you the same questions, and you just come like, oh man, I want to get done with this. So that's what I try to. But in the most part, the red flag for me, or not red flag, it's just when you're interviewing with somebody who's very uninterested. I mean, I don't know if they're interested or not, but they come across as very uninterested. Like, I'm trying to talk all the time. They don't say anything. They answer with one word. So how was it, you talk about your trip to Tibet and all the things you learn. And I bet, can you tell me some about, oh yeah, it was great. And you're like, okay. So, I mean, that type of thing is just things that are important to me and to everybody. Remember, you want to have a wonderful conversation, and you just want to get out of there and the person be like, this person was interested in the process, prepare well for the interview, sounded enthusiastic, and that's it. That's all there is. All there is to it.
Thank you so much for that insight. Honestly, yes, like we hear all this histories, what to do, what not to do in forums, and like about the interviews, how to prepare. And since we're nearing to the end of our session, I'm still going to ask a little bit more of, now that ERAS doesn't have any hobby section, where should we include them? And our friend Marino asked this because we need to put an organization even for hobby. For example, I love to run, and I have done that for 9 years, and I do it by myself and with family. How can I put that on experiences section? Yeah,
I mean, there's obviously experience. You can have those 10 experiences. I think you can put 3 that are kind of major. People are going to be looking for it. You can put it in part of your experiences, hobbies or things that you do, like in, extracurricular activities that you do. And just kind of, I would say, why do I do it and what it brings to it. For example, typical example, I love to do fitness because, I want to, if you ask me right now, I'm like, I have 2 kids and I want to stay healthy for them because I had kids older, and I do fitness in a way to stay healthy. And also it's a way for me to, clear my mind for the day, because it's the time I have by myself. And when I'm really exerting, I just clear my mind because I can't think about anything else but surviving the work. And it's kind of a way for me to do mindfulness. And that's all you have to say. I like fitness. This is the reasons why I like it, and this is what is important to me. And this is the way that fitness gives meaning to my life and reinforces my values of being a good father, and be a kind person, and not accumulate anger, and try to clear things out of my life and be grateful and have gratitude about the things that went well for me in the day. And I can incorporate as an example of this fitness example into this that I want to say. So that's kind of how I will go about it. But definitely mention hobbies. Whatever it is, doesn't have to be anything. Again, we're going to back. It doesn't have to be like, your hobby doesn't have to be like, I don't know, I like space traveling. That's my hobby. It doesn't have to be that. Whatever it is, walking, looking at flowers, it doesn't really matter. Board games, drawing, singing, karaoke, cooking. It doesn't really matter what it is, photography, videography, social media, whatever it is.
I love it. And how you think we can increase visibility for the application of an IMG?
Yeah, I went through that. Again, it's not easy. The best way to do it, obviously, is, the easiest way to do it is try to get rotation wherever you want, or go get, I know it's not easy sometimes, but that's kind of the best way. The second best way is to go like to a national meeting. And before you go, kind of get involved in the medical student part of it, and where do they meet? What are their activities? Because I met a lot of medical students. RSNA is our biggest meeting, Radiological Society of North America, and they have a huge student section. And and they have like a, and that way I met a lot of people. The other one is just get involved in a committee. It doesn't matter what social media committee, there's now even journals have like a medical student editorial board. I mean, there's just so many things right now that you can get involved as a student that you can meet people and get your name out there. The same with societies in schools. I mean, there's a lot of societies now, like the radiology interest group, women in radiology group. I mean, there's just a lot of things that you can do in that sense. Get a mentor and a sponsor. I mean, that's something that can help too. If you can get that, it's really hard as an IMG, especially if you're not in the United States, because it's really hard to make that first connection. But it doesn't have to be somebody very famous or anything like that. It just has to be somebody who kind of mentors you. And I see if it works in an academic center is better, because those people talk to other people, and your name gets amplified in that sense. It just, but don't think it has to be this special person to be a mentor. And obviously social media, you can get into social media, comment on people. That's the way to develop your personal brand. Obviously be careful with social media. It's a tool, remember that social media is all about how you develop your personal branding. And the personal branding is some about internal self-awareness, and the rest is about external self-awareness. And I think a lot of us think about internal self-awareness. It's like, how do we think of ourselves bringing value to whatever you want to do? In this case, well, to residency programs, but also there's have to be careful about your external self-awareness. This is what people think you bring to the table. And that in social media can be a little bit tricky, but I mean, as long as you stay out of political stuff, religious, and do your advocacy in a moderate way. I mean, I think obviously advocacy is really important. But when you're an applicant, you probably should stay away from very controversial topics like abortion, stuff like that, which obviously we all have a stance, but there are other venues for you to make a difference without hurting yourself. Remember, you never know who's going to interview you. And there may be that somebody who's going to interview you is really against all this, because these are very polarizing subjects, and you never know. There's a world of people you never know. So you just have to try to stay neutral. But that's the last way to do it. But people have been able to do social media very, very effectively to increase their visibility. But I mean, it's just one of many ways to do it. It's just, remember, you all want to do the email, then, emailing somebody, doing your research, and being able to write a 3 or 4 line short email, thoughtful, with a specific reason why you like that place or why you want to, all you want people to notice you. All you want is people to click at your application. That's all you want to do. And they just have to be a way that they're looking at the horizon and suddenly they see you. That's it. So there's just many ways to do it. I mean, I'm not saying this is okay, you do it, it's going to happen, but it is your best shot, because as IMG, you're just competing with a lot of people, and just want to get noticed. That's it. Once you get noticed, because American grads, it's easier to get noticed. For example, we in Texas, if you graduated from the medical school here, you will give you an interview automatically. Doesn't matter who you are, what your grades are. I mean, just for American students, a little bit easier, just because they're from here. So the visibility for them is not as important.
Well, thank you for all these insights. We really appreciate all of your answers, your time, and speaking about time, we're being very mindful of your Saturday. We have arrived to the end of this amazing session. Thank you so much, Dr. Angel. Do you have any last words for us?
Well, good luck. I mean, I think the process is difficult. Just think it that way. First, it's a game. Play the game. No shame on it. Everybody's playing it. It doesn't make you unkind. You're not trying to, make other people look bad. You're just trying to play the game and get your opportunities for you. So play the game. No shame on that. Get out there. Even if you're an introvert, make the effort to get out there and make yourself seen. It's important to do. But it's hard. The process is hard. And if you like neurosurgery, dermatology, or some of the specialties, give it a try. I think for you and for everybody, it requires a lot of hard work, but also a little bit of luck. And I feel like I mentor a lot of people, you know, if you don't match in 1 or 2 years, maybe consider doing another specialty. It's not the end of the world. I've seen a lot of people changing specialties and they're super happy. Again, I'm a radiologist. I could have been a surgeon. I could have been a rheumatologist. There's a number of things that I could have done and be equally as happy. It's just we get this thing that this is the only thing I can do, and I don't like just because how competitive and type A we are. But by all means, just try it. But if it don't work, just consider that you can move a little bit the pieces, and there's nothing wrong with it. Doesn't mean you're gonna be unhappy. There's no failure here. Failure is not trying and giving up, but changing roads and trying to accommodate for the realities and things that you can change. That's not failure. That's actually makes you a winner.
Thank
And
you.
we all know that. So good luck to everybody. And thank you for having me here. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, it's been a pleasure for us too. Thank you so much. And if we ever have any case like that we need a radiologist, be sure that we'll be inviting you.
Yeah. Well, you guys can find me in social media. I'm all over the social media space, and I have a YouTube page that I'm trying to make more informational videos that I haven't done for a while. So I'm trying to get into that, but hopefully I'll do it before the beginning of the ERAS application. But you'll have a blessed Saturday, and it's been a pleasure. Okay.
You too.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.